Welcome to today's presentation on augmentative and alternative communication. I'm Karen Haynes from West Virginia University. Augmentative and alternative communication really fits under the broad umbrella of assistive technology. It's just one type of assistive technology. Let's watch a little video and learn a little bit more about what AAC is.
Augmentative and alternative communication, also known as AAC, is a way for an individual to communicate when they do not have the physical ability to use verbal speech or writing. AAC systems are designed to help people express their thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. AAC can range from a simple set of picture symbols on a communication board up to a computer system that is programmed to speak with words or messages. AAC might be a temporary system that is used while a child's speech and language are developing, or might be the individual's primary means of communication for a lifetime. AAC is used by those with a wide range of speech and language impairments. Common causes for severe speech disability include congenital conditions such as cerebral palsy and autism. Also, many people acquire conditions that result in the loss of speech. Some common examples include amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, head injuries, and Parkinson's disease. AAC can help people who are not able to talk at all. It can also be a helpful strategy if a child is talking but is difficult to understand. The use of AAC strategies can help children improve their ability to interact with others and to communicate better at home, at school, and in the community. Using AAC can also help decrease inappropriate behaviors, such as crying or tantrums that are often due to the child's difficulty with communication. There are a wide variety of ways that people access AAC. Access is the way an individual makes selections on a communication board or speech-generating device. Some of the access methods used for AAC include direct selection by pointing or reaching, scanning using a switch connected to a device, head pointing, and eye control. Selecting the best way to communicate can be a complex process. It's important to get an evaluation by a group of professionals who are qualified to evaluate the necessary skills to use an AAC system successfully. An evaluation should involve a team of professionals working together. In addition to the AAC user and his or her family and caregivers, this team often includes a speech-language pathologist, a physician, an occupational therapist, or physical therapist.
Let's look at a little bit of information about augmentative and alternative communication next. So first of all, I always think it's interesting to look at the incidence. So how many individuals are we talking about? Well, ASHA indicates to us that about 8 to 12 people per 1,000 experience severe communication impairments that might require AAC. We often refer to these individuals as individuals with complex communication needs. Next, I wanted to give you a textbook definition, again by ASHA, of what AAC is. And as you glance through and look at this information, you'll see that just as the previous video talked about AAC, we're often talking about communication systems that may be used to compensate and facilitate temporarily or permanently communication. So when we're thinking about compensating, we're thinking about maybe a communication system for an individual who is functionally non-speaking and who may not be able to improve their verbal communication skills. However, we also use AAC systems to facilitate communication. So we find that using an AAC system often will encourage the individual to develop verbal communication. And so we may use it in a sense as a gateway to verbal communication. AAC systems may be temporary or they may be permanent. We may have a system that we're using for just a short period of time, perhaps while someone's in the hospital, or It may be while the individual is gaining their verbal output skills or reacquiring them, perhaps after an impairment such as a head injury or so on. Or it may be that the system is going to be used permanently, and we may have some indication that it is unlikely that the individual will ever gain the ability to use verbal communication. We also, you'll note when you look at this definition, that we're not always talking about just expressive communication, but we also see augmentative communication used to enhance comprehension. But for the purposes of our conversation today, we're primarily talking about the use of AAC for expressive uses. There are four primary components of an AAC system. So these components are symbols, aids, strategies, and techniques. These components come together to create an individual's system. So let's explore these a bit. So the symbols are basically how we're going to be representing language. It can be something like an object, or it can be something as complex as actual written words. We often think of symbols in a hierarchy, starting with items that are most concrete and moving to items that are the least concrete. So objects are really concrete symbols. They are 3D symbols that can be touched and seen. Sometimes we'll use partial objects or miniature objects, and we work our way down to photographs, colored pictures, line drawings, or traditional orthography or actual writing. We also think about symbols as being either aided or unaided. An aided symbol is one that is going to require you to have something with you. You have an external aid, where an unaided system is something that you actually can produce with your body. So unaided symbols are things like gestures or sign language, vocalizations, or speech, while aided symbols would be things like tangible symbols or photographs or line drawings and pictures, writing, or even Braille. Aids refer to the devices that we use to transmit or receive messages, while strategies are ways in which symbols can be conveyed most effectively and efficiently. So what kind of strategies the individual uses to, say, enhance their timing of their messages, assist with grammatical formation, or enhance communication rates. Augmentative and alternative communication is inherently slower than verbal communication. So we often work with individuals to help them hold the communication floor or to pre-store messages that they might need at a later time, thereby enhancing their communication rates. We also have to think of another component, which is the technique, which is the way messages are physically transmitted, and that could be through direct selection or it might be through scanning. And we'll explore those later in a further module where we will discuss access methods. And other terms that we should be familiar with as we're beginning to explore this topic are this classification of augmentative components as being low-tech, mid-tech, or high-tech. Low-tech components, and sometimes people think of this category as low-tech or no-tech, but low-tech might be a communication board or a plexiglass E-tran or a single message switch such as a Big Mac. These are typically items that are not real expensive, and uh, we think about these things as certainly, in a case of a Big Mac, we may be thinking of a cost of $100 or $150, but we're not talking about equipment that is going to be very expensive. Mid-tech often encompasses the items um, that are we're beginning to think about things that are perhaps a little more expensive, perhaps have additional features associated with them, and so these will be things that are going to go from a couple $100 really up to about $3,000 to $4,000, and our high-tech devices are really those that are going to be then above those mid-tech devices. Right now the market tends to include high-tech devices as being things that might be considered perhaps maybe $8,000 to $20,000. When we think too about mid-tech, we sometimes are thinking about our um, our tablet communication systems that we might have with an app that we could put together for maybe $1,000 or a little more, depending on how many externals we need with them. Do we need switches? Do we need an indestructible case and a key guard, etc.? But as we build those systems, they would fall within that mid-tech category as well. Um, Next, I wanted us to talk a little bit about who we might be thinking about. What kind of diagnoses fall um, in this population that we think of with complex communication needs? And so sometimes these are individuals who have a cognitive or intellectual impairment, or it might be an individual with autism or cerebral palsy, childhood apraxia of speech, developmental delays, expressive language delays. I didn't include it on this list, but I also see many children who have genetic disorders, and there are many of those, and so a number of those individuals have complex communication needs and also might require an AAC system. We also work with individuals who have acquired disabilities, so this might be an individual who has suffered a traumatic brain injury or has aphasia, or perhaps has a neurological disorder such as ALS. Next, I wanted us to watch a few individuals who are using various AAC systems. So this first example is a young man who is using PEX, Picture Exchange Communication System, a well-known system that I expect many of you are familiar with. And so let's watch this little video.
I want more. I want whipped cream, please. Oh, no. There you go. Yeah, no, it's silly. Hi, Parker. Do you want water or juice?
Hello.
A juice?
Hello.
All right, we'll get some juice.
Good job.
Our default is water. Do you want straw?
Mama.
Oh, what color? Blue or orange?
Oh, nice.
Nice, Parker. There you go, buddy. It's a big straw.
All right, so as you saw, he was using his pictures and putting them on the picture strip and relaying his message via his pictures from his PEX notebook. So next, we will go to looking at a communication lap tray. This is a young man who we can observe communicating using this lap tray, using a combination of written words, symbols, and also spelling.
Your own. Well, is there somewhere special you're going to go this summer? You? Yes. The, be, no. The, be, a,